Jake Gyllenhaal remains to be just the best, honestly. So the new Roadhouse movie has just come out. It's a remake of the original from the 80s, and it's a movie I never really grew up with. I didn't have a lot of nostalgic attachment to the original Roadhouse as a kid. So I kind of went into this movie with nothing, like no rose-colored glasses, nothing really like that. I wasn't really needing to compare it to the original, so I'm glad I at least got to get a fresh look at this movie. And I gotta say, for the first half of it, it didn't really fully do it for me, but I will say that this movie does have some reward for my patience, because overall, I do think this movie comes together by the end, but I will say for the first half, I didn't really think I had a great juggle of characters, and I didn't think I had a great juggle of tone. However, I don't think that really lasts throughout the whole film, but for the first half, it is really an apparent issue that I will address. Roadhouse, to me, is a movie that it's very interesting because once it really gets into its self-aware nature, that's when I really started to love it. It's about Jake Gyllenhaal's character named Dalton, and essentially he comes to this town where he needs to protect this bar called a Roadhouse. The Roadhouse is a place where there's a lot of fights going on, and there's not a lot of rules going on to protect people from that, and management won't really step in to do anything about it. They really need someone like Dalton to come in and step in to help out, because there's always chaos going on, there's no organization, people are suffering, and essentially they just couldn't get the licensing name for Taco Max, so instead they call it a Roadhouse. And that's really cool because I think that's where the self-aware nature of this movie comes in, and I really enjoyed seeing that part of it. It feels like there's a living world with characters in this absurd world, but it's definitely not of our world. It's definitely something that I just appreciate that the movie was able to play up what it was in that environment. It just feels kind of like a battle zone compared to the normal society outside of the Roadhouse. So it felt kind of lived in, which I appreciated. But what really I struggled with the most with this movie is the first half of it, because I didn't really think the movie was taking advantage of the fact that it could be very self-aware and know what it is. It felt like it was taking itself a little too seriously for my comfort. It felt like a lot of characters were coming together in ways that didn't really feel the smoothest. I wasn't really that emotionally attached to the whole dynamic between Jake Gyllenhaal, Dalton's character, with this other girl that he meets. So ultimately it does come together, but at first I wasn't that emotionally gripped by it. It just kind of felt like scenes to pass time over real good, character development at first. The movie doesn't really have deep character, but Roadhouse isn't really about deep character in the first place, I don't think. But it just felt like the movie was taking itself a little too seriously to be really enjoyable, so it just kind of felt like it was rather slow. But then, after a while, some new characters enter the fray, and that comes in the form of Conor McGregor, and that is when this movie really picks up, and that's when I started really having a blast with it, because he brought in this energy of self-aware nature to the film overall that just made it that much more fun to watch. It felt like everyone knew what they were making at that point. This movie's absurd, and then it starts playing up its absurdity, and then at one point, Jake Gyllenhaal's character start really getting some more insight into what's going on in his head, how he is actually like, what his motivations really are in the scenario, and really elements of his past that do make him rather more interesting. And then at a point, his character just kind of snaps. And from that point on, the movie just picked up for me. And it's like the quality had a jump as well as the tone. It then suddenly went full on into its atmosphere. And it really felt like a fun, know what you are action movie that really just played up its absurdities and knew what it was in a good way. I thought this movie did a great job at that point on playing up what it was. The fact that this movie has unhinged performances like Conor McGregor to bounce off Jake Gyllenhaal's make it a nice back and forth, because when they start going at each other's throats, it makes it really nice because they're polar opposite attitudes, and it works for a contrasting element of this movie. And Conor McGregor's absurd in it. It's really funny, but I think in a way that works for the tone of this film overall. When he comes in, it feels like he's just this reign of chaos. He's just kind of nuts, and I think the movie knows that. There are definitely moments where it's apparent in that way, and I think it comes from the fact that a lot of the other characters start hamming it up too. It starts feeling like everyone's on the same page of what's going on, and at first it didn't really feel like that. At first, a lot of the first half of the movie felt like it was Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this something like mysterious kind of romance drama with the one character, and then the Roadhouse element was the self-aware part, and we had to bounce between those elements. And then once everything starts clicking together, the movie just picks up, and I thought the pacing also picked up in that regard too, and suddenly I was really enjoying myself. We were getting some really well-directed action. Doug Liman does a great job, I think, helming this, because all the fight choreography is incredible. Whoever choreographed this did an amazing job. Same thing with the cinematography. It looks really sleek. Sometimes I will say the camera work does get a bit exhausting, because even the dialogue scenes are kind of filmed like action sometimes, so it feels like you're not really taking the time to just sit down and breathe with the character. One scene apparently when a lot of characters are on a boat talking really shows that, and it was just an example where I think it's a nitpick. It doesn't ruin the movie, but it is something I think is worth addressing. Sometimes the fight choreography really felt stylistic, and sometimes it would go into a CG effect, And that was when it took me out of the movie. But whenever the movie was taking itself in a more grounded nature with the fights at least, and whenever the fights felt real and hand to hand and kind of brutal and dirty, that was when it was enjoyable for me. That was when the action was really at its best. And I just had a blast with the third act of this movie. I thought that was where the movie slowly picked up. It gets better as it goes along, in my opinion. This movie is not deep. It's not trying to be complex characters. It's not trying to be something serious at a point. There's a character named Big Dick in the movie. Like, what? What do you want me to say? This movie's not meant to be taken that seriously. But that doesn't mean it's an insult to the movie. I think that's a compliment. I think the movie really knows what it is at a point and really plays it up in a cool way. It just takes some time to get there, and sometimes it feels like the pacing does suffer for that. Ultimately, though, when the movie does pick up, I really had a good time with it, and I came out enjoying Roadhouse a lot more than I did. I kind of wish I saw it in theaters. Maybe that would have even upped the experience for me. That being said, for a streaming movie, for it just coming out on Prime for you available to watch, it is a good time if you just want to kind of sit back and have a fun time with a movie that ends up playing up what it is in a really fun and self-aware way. And I really enjoyed Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this. He is the reason to watch this movie. I love his performance in this. His character is actually really fun to watch because he's just a dude that's reserving a lot of anger, and he has this zen nature about him that's really fascinating to see as he's interacting with other characters. It's really fun watching the other absurd personalities bounce off of that throughout this movie. Overall, I really just had a good time with Roadhouse. It knows what it is at a point, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was just a fun blast to watch, and I enjoyed the performances. Cinematography was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy the new Roadhouse? Do you like the original Roadhouse? Tell me what you think below. Thank you for watching Scatterbrained Reviews. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll see you guys next time. Seeing Godzilla X Kong tonight, so that'll be fun. I'll see you with that.